What I'm going to do now is go through the 5 stages to math struggles so that you can think about whereabouts it is that you're on this journey, and also by the end of it, what it is that you need to do next. This is really from the moment you first notice that your child might be finding something hard to the moment where you finally decide to do something about it. And I'll be revealing what it is, what that thing is that you could be doing about it very, very shortly. Now, stage number one. This is often just from parents looking at their child doing homework or asking them a question and being kind of surprised that they can't answer it. And you might be thinking to yourself, okay, well, what type of question is this? Maybe you've just asked them to do a really basic adding question. And then because they've struggled with it, you're like, oh goodness, they can't do adding and subtracting. You're already doing something, simply by doing that, you're already doing something that teachers do every day. We have to try and identify what the things are that children struggle with, kind of like a doctor diagnoses a patient. You've got to look for the symptoms, look for the things that they're struggling with, and then work on that. So these are usually things like addition and subtraction, multiplication and division, and within that is things like times tables. Now, the moment that you've seen that, that is stage number one. That is where you've thought, oh, hang on a minute, this doesn't seem right. My child is finding this a little bit tricky. And you might have that feeling in your gut of, oh, I kind of expected my child to know that, and they don't. In that stage number one, that's your chance to get things sorted early. So if you're at that stage now and for the first time you've just thought, my child should have been able to do that and they weren't able to do that. You're feeling a little bit unsure. You might have heard a couple of reports from the teacher, but you're not fully convinced. Now's the time to act upon it. If your child is still 8 or 9 years old, they do have time to catch up, but it's much better to start early than it is to start later. So if you would like a little bit of support with that, and if you wanted to know exactly what your child should be able to do, then come and join the mastery assessment. The link is in the pinned comment. If you click that, all you have to do is put in your name and email address, and now I will give you access to my mastery assessment. It shows you everything that your child needs to learn at this age, and I will be able to give you some personalized feedback on how you can get some help, and that will all come within 24 hours. So that's stage number one, the moment you first notice that your child is struggling with something. And it's just so important that you act upon that, because the sooner you start taking action, the sooner they can start getting the help that they need. And the sooner you can start moving them towards a point where you can see that they understand it and you see that they're more relaxed towards maths. So the next part is stage number two. And this is about when you find your child in that moment of this is too tricky. So many kids get to this point and it's so clear that they're finding something too hard. But a lot of kids act in different ways. So maybe you've seen your child trying to do a question that might be, let me just pick a question off the top of my head. 3007 subtract 245. Now, around about the age of 8 and 9, this is a type of question that they would be asked to do in their assessments in school. They do practice this. A lot of schools do addition and subtraction questions like that at the very start of the year. But say you ask your child to do this and they start by counting on their fingers. Now, I don't know about you, but if I was trying to work out 3005, I can't remember what 3007, take away 245, I wouldn't start counting backwards 245 times. That's not the correct method for that. And maybe another thing that you've seen them do is try and just make some little markings and start dotting it out and then counting it all. Now, whilst these are strategies to work out maths questions, they're not the most efficient ones. And these are often the types of questions that, these are often the types of methods children learn lower down in school. So if your child is still using these types of methods of counting or just drawing little tally marks, it's a clear sign that they've not mastered those core methods. Okay. And if you see that, that's the second stage of math struggles where really you need to intervene because they're not suddenly going to pick these things up. I talk to a lot of parents who try apps or they try worksheets. And whilst these can be useful, they're not the thing to help your child learn when they don't know how to do it. Okay, so think about it this way. If you wanted your child to practice their times tables, you could get them a workbook full of times tables questions. But that's only going to work if they know how to actually do their times tables. The workbook is just a vehicle, I suppose, to help them keep practicing it over and over again and get better and better and better. Maybe something else that you've noticed within the stage two of these stages of struggle is that they just try and do something in their head, but then they're getting confused because they've not committed the method to paper and they're not trying it right there and then. So, again, that shows they've not mastered this method. What you want from your child really is that they can see a question and then know, I need to use this method and just get straight to it. Okay, because that's what we teach them in school. When we're going through these types of questions in school, that is what we're trying to teach them. We're saying, no, no, don't try and do this in your head. There's mental arithmetic, and there are lots of questions you can do in your head. But when it's a larger question, especially for addition, subtraction, larger multiplying numbers, and especially something like dividing, we push them towards methods. And there's lots of different methods. There's the formal written method, which are the ones that are, the most common, probably the ones you'll remember from school are the formal written methods. Perhaps in another video, I'll go into those. But we also do things like the part whole model, the place value chart. You might have heard your child's teacher talking about these, and it'll sound like jargon. It's very different to what I saw when I was at school, and it's potentially very different to what you saw when you were in school as well. But if they at least have methods that they can fall back on, it gives them some like a place to start. Now, if you want to know what those exact methods are, and you're like, if I just knew what the methods look like, then I would be able to help my child, then go and click the link in the pinned comment just here. That will take you to my mastery assessment. It's completely free. All you need is your name and your email address. And there I'll show you what all the skills are that children aged 8 and 9 need to do. And it's a little assessment for your child. So you can see what can they do already? Do they know how to do these methods? I go through all the answers in the video, and that way you're going to feel more confident of what it is that you need to teach your child. The best part about signing up just now is that you can also take part in the parents survey, the one that I've done over the past couple of days, where I'll be able to give you personalized feedback. I'll be able to help you specifically with the things that your child is struggling with. And normally takes me about 24 hours just to get back to you on that. So go and click the link now if you want to find out what those methods are. Now, normally when I talk about stage two and I talk about children not knowing what the methods are and not knowing what it is that they need to do next, parents say, but what about my child? He just refuses to try. Or what about my daughter? She'll say anything to get out of doing maths. She'll suddenly decide that she wants to go and get something from another room or go and use the bathroom 5 times with these stalling tactics and delaying or just outright refusal to start. Now, this is slightly separate to not knowing the method. It's the thing that comes after not knowing the method. Now, I want you just to imagine for a moment that you were in a room and there was 1,000 people in this room. And suddenly the announcer calls you out and says, you need to come to the front and do a speech on rocket science. Now, I don't know about you, my knowledge of rocket science isn't pretty good. And if I was told to do a speech on rocket science, I'd suddenly feel pretty concerned. I'd probably want to try and go to the bathroom to get out of that situation. It's because I would know that if I had to go and do a speech on rocket science, I would probably fail at doing that. Now, because your child might be avoiding or stalling or trying to get out of doing that task, chances are it's because they know if I try this, I'm probably going to fail. And no children like failing. They really hate being in front of other people and getting things wrong. It can really badly affect their self-esteem. And, parents tell me that they think their child has maths anxiety. And this is something that's a term that's used a lot. I don't know whether it's a healthy way to sort of describe it, but there's certainly a worry involved about getting things wrong. And it embeds itself. So when children have felt it once, they then start to feel it the next time and again and again and again. And it just sort of spirals out of control. So if you've ever noticed your child doing any of those things, counting on their fingers, trying to just use random tally marks to work out questions, doing things in their head, but getting confused, guessing, avoiding, stalling, delaying, any of those, then that normally is a sign that the methods that they're supposed to be using haven't quite been consolidated. And that is stage number 2. So just a little reminder, stage number 1 is when you first noticed that your child is struggling with something. That's when you need to act. It's stage number 1 of the 5 stages of math struggle. And you notice that your child is doing something wrong, and you're like, they should have known that. You need to act. Find out what it is. Get an assessment. Go and click the link in the top comment. That will take you to an assessment so you can see exactly what level your child is working at. Stage number 2 is when you see, they're trying to use the wrong methods to answer the questions, which means they don't know the methods. So that's stage number 1, stage number 2, and now on to stage number 3. Stage number 3 is really interesting because this is where your child gives you a signal. Okay, they've already given you somewhat of a signal by finding things difficult, but the next signal is really what they do. Do they get upset when maths is mentioned? Do they get upset when they're trying to do maths homework? Do they just try and avoid the work completely? Do they maybe say things like, oh, I can't do this, or this is too hard, or I'm bad at maths? Sometimes kids even compare themselves to others. And they say, oh, but in class, this child knows the answer, or this, they already know what the teacher's going to ask them before she's even asked. And that sort of feedback from your child is then stage number three, when you're noticing that your child is saying things about what they find hard, or they are saying that they can't do that. You notice that it's really affecting their self-esteem. And that's where, within the five stages of maths, it's starting to get a little bit serious at that point. You're starting to say, well, I need to do something here because I don't want them to fall further behind. And if you've not caught it at stage one, when you first noticed them doing something wrong, or you've not caught it at stage two, when it was clear they didn't quite know the skills the methods that they had to use, then stage number three is really a crucial point where they've actually started giving you feedback that shows they don't quite understand what it is that they're supposed to be doing. So here again, it's when they're getting upset, they're avoiding things, they're just trying to say, I can't do this, or I'm bad at maths. And it's really hard. When you hear a child saying, like, I'm stupid or I'm dumb, it's really horrible because you can tell how much that weighs on them to hear that sort of language when they're saying it about themselves. So really, they're the first three stages out of the five stages of math struggles. Number one is when you notice it yourself and you see they should have got that question, but they've not. I don't know why they can't understand some of the simple questions. Stage number two is when they're using the wrong methods. They're counting or they're trying to do it in their head for something that's a bit of a trickier question, which means they don't know the methods. And then the stage number three, you're getting the feedback from them. They're saying things that they're bad at maths, they're avoiding it. All of these things are showing you your child is struggling in maths, and it's about time you do something about it, which is why I've put the link in the top comment just there. That'll take you to my mastery assessment, where you can sign up. All you need is your name and email. It's completely free, and it'll tell you exactly what your child should be doing at home and what exactly you need to focus on next in order to help them make that progress. I go through all the methods there for you to make sure that so that you're ready for it. Okay, so we've done stage number one, where you notice it. Stage number two, when your child uses the wrong method. Stage number three, when you get that feedback from your child that they're saying that they're struggling. But then we have stage number four. This is when you've actually tried to help. Okay, a lot of parents get to this point. Some of them go straight to stage number four and they immediately try and get some help, which is fantastic. Okay, and maybe you've tried a few different things. Perhaps you've gone and looked at different apps and you've tried to think, well, what apps can I use to help my child advance? What can I do to help them consolidate the skills? And with a lot of the time, with apps, it can be useful, but normally, from my experience, they're not very good at teaching the essential skills. So the actual core methods that are needed to be used to actually help children understand and learn things, it doesn't seem to teach those very well. And maybe you've had this experience yourself if you've ever used one of these apps, is that whilst your child is using it and they're on the iPad or on their computer, they seem to be making really good progress. It seems to be going really well, but the moment you turn off the app and try and do the work in the real world, everything falls apart. Okay, and this happens so often because the way that the app is designed, the children learn how to play the game or they learn how to do the task within that context, but they're not really making that foundational knowledge be built underneath. So as soon as they try and see it in a different context, they try and do it in class, it just leaves their brain. It doesn't make sense to them anymore. Okay. And then worksheets. Worksheets are something that a lot of parents do, worksheets and workbooks. If you come and bring worksheets and workbooks to your child, they're great, but they're really only useful if your child already knows the skills that are inside of them. They're more of a practice tool, not a learning tool, which is really important. There's a big distinction there. For example, if your child already knows how to add and subtract, giving them 100 add and subtract questions would be great to practice. Okay, but if they don't know how to do division, just putting a division workbook in front of them or a worksheet full of division questions, because I know a lot of parents do this, they just go on Google and type in age for division questions. And I'm not saying that to ridicule you in any way, because when I first started teaching, I did the same thing, but it's not useful as a teaching tool. It really is just a practice tool. Now, there are obviously some great ways to help, and especially with the worksheets, that's normally linked in with parents that are trying to help at home themselves, a bit of a DIY teaching job, which is really commendable. If you are working with your child at home, you're doing so much more than many other parents. And this isn't a judgment on other parents. You know, I work with parents every day with my job. But if you are taking it upon yourself to try and support your child, even if it's not going to work and you might not be teaching them enough, simply them knowing that you've got their back and you're supporting them is huge. And that really matters in the long run. So hats off to you if you are doing that. But then I guess I'll go to the final one. And this is a big one a lot of people talk about is getting a private tutor, either in person or online. And it's super interesting because there are some fantastic tutors. Okay, there are some people who I personally know who do tutoring and they're great at their job. They have a great relationship with the family and they're able to be there on time. They're helping them, they're focusing on exactly the things the child needs to work on, and it can be super successful. However, I've also heard some horror stories of tutors who are literally just treating it like a paycheck and they're just telling the parents whatever they want to hear in order to keep making that money every single week that they go back. And I've had children in my class who have a tutor, and I'm like, really? I'm not seeing any progress from them from outside of school, so it might not always be worth it. However, there is a study that actually came out of Harvard Extension School. I'll be very quick on this, and we'll get back to the 5 stages in a moment. But there was a study that came out of Harvard Extension School that was just after the pandemic, and it did a bit of research. They did a bit of research to try and find out, how effective is home learning with online tutoring or online lessons? Because I really hope that some of my online lessons will never be judged because when we first had to do the online learning, it was horrendous. However, since then, a lot of people and a lot of teachers have practiced this and they've got really, really good at it. And one of the main things they've said is that online tutoring and online teaching can be as effective, if not more effective, than in-class teaching. Now, that's not going to be the case for all children. However, they did find for children that are deemed low confidence or low ability, it can actually be beneficial to get an online tutor. Because for them, a lot of them get very intimidated with what's going on around them, and it can be really difficult for them to actually participate in class because they're so concerned with what other children around them are doing. But if it's just them and just the tutor, or just them going through a video course, then they can pause, they can play, they can go through it at their own pace, and it feels like it's just them and the teacher. It really lowers the barrier for entry for them to actually take part in these lessons. And the results have been fantastic. And as I said, this is from Harvard Extension School. They've actually been given this research to show that private tutoring through online learning can be really, really useful. Now, let's quickly just recap those 4 stages. So stage number 1 is when you first notice it. You see there's a question your child should have been able to do and they kind of can't do it. Stage number 2 is when you notice they're using the wrong method. They're counting in their head or they're using their fingers to try and answer a really big addition question. Step number 3 is when your child gives you that feedback and they start saying things to you like, I'm bad at maths, I can't do this. They're refusing to do it or they're tightening up whenever you bring the maths out. That's stage number 3. It's another sign that they're really struggling. And stage number 4 is when you actually step in and you give them something that's trying to help them make that next step and trying to help them make that progress. And if you want to know what it is that your child should be learning, if you're one of those people in stage 4, ready to start getting them some help, go and click the link in my comments just now. There, I will talk you through exactly what it is your child should be learning in a free mastery assessment. All you need is your name and email, and I go through all of the content for children aged 8 and 9, and it helps you understand what the methods are, what should they actually be doing, and also at the moment you do get to take part in the parent survey, where you can tell me a little bit about your child, as much or as little as you like, and I will give you personal feedback on what it is that your child should be doing next. So they're the 4 stages. Now we're ready to move on to stage number 5, and this is really the last step before parents actually take real action on what it is that their child should be doing at home to try and make that progress. So when you've gone through those 4 stages and you've seen that your child is struggling, that they're not answering a question that they should be able to do, they are not using the correct methods, they're counting in their head for a huge question. Stage number 3, when they are telling you, I can't do this. And they're showing by their body language and the things that they're doing that this is too difficult for them. Stage number 4 is when you've tried to help already. And the last bit, this is actually when it comes to you. And you need to think, how urgent is this for me? Is this something I need to sort right now? Am I just getting started? Do I just want to know a little bit more about it? Because the urgency of a parent really shows how much their child is struggling or how aware they are of their child's struggles. Because here's the thing. If your child is aged 8 or 9 and they're struggling in maths, it's not really the end of the world at this point. And that might sound strange coming from a teacher. Now, obviously, the children in my class, I want to make sure they're doing as well as they possibly can. But I also know there's year 5 coming up, there's year 6 coming up, there's other grades that they're going to move into, and they're still going to get a chance to catch up. It's not the end of the world right now. However, that's not the best way to look at it. You need to think, if I don't sort this now and I wait until next year, it's actually going to be harder, because that means that there's even more that they've missed out on or that they've fallen behind on. And then later, as they go down through school, they start to find it harder and harder to catch up. And I'll really illustrate that with a story that one of the parents told me. There was a boy in my class who was really struggling in maths. And she'd said it had been the same every single year. So when he was in age 6 to 7, he was behind in maths. When he was in 7 to 8, he was behind in maths. And then 8 to 9 is when he came into my class. And she said to me, it's not even a surprise anymore. I know what the report is going to say. I know what his grades are going to be. And she said, it's really bad, but it kind of feels like a storm on the horizon. And I've told the story a couple of times before, but it's just because it really stuck with me. She said, when there's a storm on the horizon, very far away in the distance, you can just turn away from it. You can look somewhere else and pretend it's not there. And she said that's what she was doing with her son. She was saying, okay, well, I know you're really good at reading. Let's go do some reading instead. I know you're really good at writing. Let's go do some writing instead. But she kept on ignoring the maths for as long as she possibly could until it came to a realization, just like a storm that's far in the distance, eventually the day is going to come where you have to face that storm. The rain is going to start coming down, not to be too dramatic about it. But she knew, whether it was at high school or when he was trying to get into college or university, that these math struggles that he was having, if they weren't dealt with now, then it was going to cause more and more of a problem for him. And she said that was the moment things got urgent for her. And really, stage number 5 of math struggles is the parent urgency. How serious is this to you? Because a lot of parents don't get to that point. They kind of linger around stage number 4, where they're kind of half helping. They're doing what they can, but they're not actually seeking for that advice. Now, if you are here and you're ready to find out exactly what it is that your child's struggling with, then I've got a couple of options for you. You can go and click the link that's in the pinned comment just within the comment section just there. And I will send you to the mastery assessment. All you need to do is type in your name and your email address, and it will show you a full assessment so that you can see what it is your child can actually do, just to give you a bit more clarity on where they're really at. Also within that, you can tell me about your child in a short survey, only takes about 2 minutes, and I'll give you some personalized feedback on what your child maybe needs to focus on next, and maybe some of the reasons why they're struggling. But I've just gone through the 5 stages of math struggle. Within there, you're probably going to see which one it is. Or if you would like, you can message me directly just now. My DMs are always open, just to tell me a little bit about what you've already tried, or maybe what it is that you hope your child to be able to do, some of the things that you're finding that are difficult for them. And I'll be able to talk you through just some really helpful examples. And, if you're at that point now where you are feeling urgent and you think, no, now's the moment, now I really need to do something about it, then please make that commitment and come and send me a message, and I'll be able to help you out. But anyway, I'll leave that just there for now, because I've been on for far too long by the looks of it. But thank you very much for coming. I will be doing a couple more lives like this as well. So any other point, please send me some messages, and I look forward to speaking to you all shortly. Thank you very much for coming. Goodbye.